here. People on internet. It's here. This ashram here. Hare Krishna. Good to be with you. Hi. So Srimad Bhagavatam. This is like the follow-up literature to Bhagavad Gita. It's like follow-up to Bhagavad Gita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Rayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Navotumam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nicham Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yutamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. All right, so it's January 1st, 2022. Okay, and yeah, hey, Happy New Year it is. Okay, so we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, entitled Questions by Vidura. We're on text 4. Text 4, Canto 3, Chapter 1. Okay, so it's the first chapter. All right. I can start with the Sanskrit words responsively. Na, I, Alpa Artha, Udaya, Tasya, Idarasya, Amala Atmana, Tasmin, Varyasi, Krishna, Sarubhada, Vimhita. So now we'll recite one line at a time responsibly. Nayam Parto Dayastasya Vidarasya Malatmana Tasmin Bari Asi Prashna Sadhu Badu Pabrimhita Nayal Parto Dayastasya Vidarasya Malatmana Tasmin Bari Asi Prashna Sadhu Badu Pabrimhita Nayal Parto Dayastasya Vidarasya Malatmana Tasmin Bari Asi Prashna Sadhu Pabrimhita Vidarasya Malatmana Tasmin Bari Asi Prashna Sadhu Badu Pabrimhita. Would anyone else here or online like to recite the verse?
Naya Partos Dayastasya Vidarasya Malatmana Tasmin vari ashi prashna.
Tasmin vari asi prashna.
Sadhu vado pramitrita hita.
Sadhu vado parimita.
Nahi alpartodai yastasya
Nayam parto dayastasya.
vidurasya malatmana
Idarasya malatmana.
tasmin variyasi prashna
Tasmin vari asi prashna.
sadhu vado paprimhita.
Sadhu vado parimita. Okay. All right, we'll go to the word for word meanings. Na, never.
Never.
He,
He.
certainly.
Certainly.
Alpa arta,
Alpha.
small, unimportant.
Small, unimportant.
Purpose.
Purpose.
Udaya,
Udaya.
raised.
Raised.
Tasya,
Tasya.
his.
His.
Vidarasya,
Vidarasya.
of Vidura.
Abhidura.
Amala Atmana,
Amala Atmana.
of the saintly man.
Of the saintly man.
Tasmin,
Tasmin.
in that.
In that.
Variyasi,
Varanasi.
highly purposeful.
Highly purposeful.
Prashna,
Prashna.
question.
Question.
Sadhu,
Sadhu.
Vada,
Vada.
things approved by saints and sages.
Things approved by saints and sages.
Upabrimhita,
Upabrimhita.
full with.
Full with.
Translation. Saint Vidura was a great and pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his questions to his grace Rishi Maitreya must have been very purposeful on the highest level and approved by learned circles. So this is Maharaj Parikshit speaking to Shukadev Goswami about Saint Vidura. Purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Questions and answers among different classes of men have different value. Inquiries by mercantile men in a business exchange cannot be expected to be highly purposeful and spiritual values. Questions and answers by different classes of men can be guessed by the caliber of persons concerned. In Bhagavad Gita, the discussion was between Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the supreme person and the supreme devotee, respectively. The Lord admitted Arjuna to be his devotee and friend, Bhagavad Gita 4.3. And therefore, any sane man can guess that the discussion was on the topic of the Bhakti Yoga system. Actually, the whole Bhagavad Gita is based on the principle of Bhakti Yoga. There is a difference between karma and karma yoga. Karma is regulated action for the enjoyment of the fruit by the performer. But karma yoga is action performed by the devotee for the satisfaction of the Lord. Karma yoga is based on bhakti, or pleasing the Lord, whereas karma is based on pleasing the senses of the performer himself. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, one is advised to approach a bona fide spiritual master when one is actually inclined to question from an elevated level of spiritual understanding. A common man has no interest in spiritual values. A common man who has no interest in spiritual values has no need to approach a spiritual master, just as a matter of following fashion. As a student, Maharaj Parikshit was serious about learning the science of God. And Shukadev Goswami was a bona fide spiritual master in the transcendental science. Both of them knew that the topics discussed by Vidura and Rishi Maitreya were elevated, and thus Maharaj Parikshit was very interested in learning from the bona fide spiritual master. Hare Krishna. All right, so before speaking a few words on this verse and purport, I'll recite a few more mantras to invoke auspiciousness, basically to ask benediction that whatever I speak will appropriately represent the spirit, intention, substance, and meaning of this book of Srila Prabhupada, of Srila Vyasadeva. Om Gyanatimmirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Upakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapana Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Stra Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sakana Raganatanditam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Varijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pradan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanditam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabadhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Panchakalpata Yubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prestaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pacharini, Nirvishesha Shunyavani Paschatya Desha Tarine. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 1, Text 4. Nayal Parto Dayastasya Vidarasya Malatmana Tasmin Bari Yasi Prashna Sadhu Badu Pabrivhita. Saint Vidura was a great and pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his questions to his grace Rishi Maitreya must have been very purposeful on the highest level and approved by learned circles. Today's January 1st, 2022. And so, okay, well, could be a special opportunity to look at, like, what am I doing with my life? What are we doing with our life? What have we done in 2021? What's our intention in 2022? So this verse talks about that, okay, so that about living a purposeful life. So Maharaj Parikshit knows, like, well, these discussions, I want to hear about them, and we're going to hear about them really for 64 chapters. Okay, this is the third and fourth canto, 64 chapters. That was been very purposeful on the highest level. All right, so it's described earlier in the Bhagavatam. Munayasada Prishtoham Bhavan Bir Lokamangalam Krita Krishna Samprasno Yenatma Suprasidati. That these, everyone's asking questions, right? Everyone's asking questions. We can say all living entities are asking questions. The squirrels are asking questions, the dogs, the blade of grass. Yeah. So implicitly, and the questions are like, where is food? Where is shelter? Where is a meat? How can I defend myself from this attack? An example we use a lot about it's in my book, Relationships to the Word, to emphasize about, like, the value, the special value of the human form of life. Use the example of a computer. I just got a new computer. Okay, so yeah. All right. So let's say I get a new computer, and you come to my home, and you see I'm using the computer as a doorstop. We use this example a lot to get to the essence. So what's the meaning of this? Okay, see, look, David, what are you doing? What do you mean, what am I doing? If the door wants to close, it can't close because the computer is there. So I got a PhD. Yeah, you're a smart guy, we can see. Well, look, David, yeah, sure. You can use the computer as a doorstop, but this computer can be used for much higher level functions, such as inviting people from all over the world to hear Srimad Bhagavatam through this technology, right? Much higher level functions. That's what's described here, the highest level, approved by learned circles. Okay, so So the basic activities, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. If we don't want to neglect those, we don't want to neglect our eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And if that's pretty much all we're doing with the human form, it's like it's like, no, we can use it for like higher value stuff. We can use it for higher value purpose. We can use this human form. Okay. And specific, so what is the higher value purpose? It's described also in the second canto Bhagavatam. Shotavyadani Rajendra Nrinam Shanti Sahasrasha Pashitam Matatva Griheshu Grihamedinam. Okay, describes there's thousands of topics for discussion that basically entangle us further in the gossip and the dreck of the drama of life, which is different than topics apashitam atmat, topics related to self-realization. So for consciously supporting each other, it's like the real opportunity in relationship, consciously supporting each other, to support the self, to turn towards itself in self-discovery, the self to turn towards the supreme in an attitude of devotion. So that's a special gift, that's a special opportunity in the human form of life. Otherwise, it's like computers at doorstep. So we're not getting the real value. So that's why Maharaj Parikshit, and he knows he's going to die. He's going to leave his body. Of course, the spirit soul never dies. He's going to leave his body in about 5 or 6 days, and he wants to be completely absorbed in vibration that matters, in conversation that matters. That's why he wants to hear about these great souls talking about self-discovery, talking about the self connecting with the absolute in a spirit of devotion. Okay, so yeah, that we often quote Teilhard de Chardin, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So to realize who we are is not this body. This body is a vehicle, just like the computer can be used, the cars can be used. We're the driver of the car. That's the important, that's the most important element. Just like if we hear there was a car crash, do we immediately ask, oh, did you get insurance money? Or is the car total? Was it in the junkyard? Was anyone injured? Did anyone die? Because we know the driver of the car is a whole lot more important than the car. Maybe later when we lose no injuries, so, can the car be fixed? That's secondary. Okay. So the spirit soul, this is the living element. This is the important element. Okay, so value, like value, that's like artha. Okay, it's the Sanskrit word for value. Sometimes it's economic development. And so this whole Srimad Bhagavatam, it's revealed by the great sage named Srila Vyasadeva. It was actually called a literary incarnation of Krishna himself. And so Vyasadeva, right, like when he was in a bhakti yogena manasi, samyak panite, he was in what's called a trance of bhakti at a place called Samyak Pras, in a cottage, lots of beautiful berry bushes, very auspicious atmosphere. And then he realized that he had already compiled this wonderful literature called the Vedas. And the spiritual master came along, essentially said, Vaya Samtirtam, he said, this literature is trash. What? It's the Vedas. It's like a pilgrimage place for crows. The idea is like when there's refuse and blood and dead bodies, you get crows. And then Narada Muni, the spiritual master of Vyasadeva, and he says, so create literatures for swans, the Hamsa, one characteristic of the swan. The swan's able to differentiate, like if there's a mixture of milk and water, you can get the milk from the mixture of milk and water. So it means like intelligence, knowledge means to be able to make distinctions. That's wisdom, to make distinction, to not be simple, to be simple-hearted, but not simplistic. Simple-hearted means I'm appreciating the complexities, the subtleties, and the nuances. And I'm so fixed in principles of conscious living that I respond to the complexities of life with clarity and purpose. So Vyasadeva, he could see that, even though he could see with the support of his spiritual teacher, Narada Muni, even though he compiled all these wonderful Vedic literatures, Upanishads, Puranas, Atharva Veda, Rig Veda, etc., etc., could see people, especially people in this current age called Kali Yuga, Manda Sumanda Mateo, Manda Bhagavad Pajata people in this age tend to be not so, tend to quarrel over trifles. Yeah. Yeah. It's described earlier in the first canto that in this age, there will even be quarrel between husband and wife. No. Can you imagine? Yeah, it's hard for you to imagine. Hard for you to imagine, but you just need to trust the Bhagavatam that it's true. Yeah. Hard for you to imagine. You can't even conceive, but it says that. So okay, so you can see people aren't going to get. They're going to miss the goal. They're going to miss the point of the Vedas. They're going to miss the essence. And even he had already given Mahabharata, which is this like epic. It's like 7 times larger than the Iliad and Odyssey combined. But the Mahabharata, it's full of all sorts of, it's all meant for spiritualization, but it's full with all sorts of political intrigue. And the Mahabharata really meant to showcase, towards the end of the Mahabharata, there's 18 chapters called the Bhagavad Gita. And that's really the crown jewel. That's the pearl of the Mahabharata. But people might miss the Bhagavad Gita because it's within all of this intrigue. So then Vyasadeva, he had realization. Anarto pasam, anarta. Artha is value, anarta is that which is not valuable. Anarto pashamam sakshat bhakti yoga bhokshaje. Lokasya janata vidam sakriya sattva samhitam. So he saw, okay, so because he had great compassion over, by studying Bhagavatam here at the beginning of a year, we get to be sincere, to develop some of the compassion of these great sages. Because he said, people are suffering. What can I give them that will truly relieve their suffering? And he realized that the core anarta, the core of all that which is foreign, anarta means that which is foreign, was misidentification of the eternal spirit soul, misidentification of that spiritual self with the material body. And that's the core of all of the lust, greed, envy, depression, toxic stress, resentment, hostility, hatred. The core is that misidentification of the eternal, joyful spirit soul with dead matter. And then on the foundation of that illusion, of that misidentification, then I'm very much not satisfied, feeling empty inside. So then as Saint Francis said, we are searching for what is searching. So then I'll try to acquire this, I'll try to get that. And meaning like we're searching externally. Whatever we're seeking to acquire in our doing and having, we're always looking for some experience. Peace, love, fulfillment, joy, security, satisfaction. And I'll have it if I just have that much money in the bank, if I just have that family situation, if I just have that residential, if I just have that position in the company. We're searching for what is searching. And so this is dedicated, these vibrations of this Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. We say this book is the follow-up book to Bhagavad Gita. True. And it's vital to understand these are not books in the ordinary sense. These books, each syllable, each line, each verse reveals truth and is simultaneously identical with the truth that it reveals. That's transformation. That's transformation. Because even if cognitively we don't get it, I agree, I don't agree. But just by hearing and chanting the vibration, our hearts are transformed from our anartas are cleared and we return to our original consciousness. Srila Prabhupada, in his well-known purport to the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, he says, he speaks that this chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. He says this is not an artificial imposition on the mind. This is the original consciousness of the soul. So that's why I can often feel, well, this is kind of strange. This is foreign, this whole thing. At the same time, it strangely feels like coming home. This is the original consciousness of the soul. So every verse is a mantra that is non-different from the truth it reveals. So that's power, that's transformation. That's transformation. And so, so Vyasadeva, he realized that, okay, so his conclusion, his action plan from his realizations, from his trance of bhakti yoga, after compiling all the Vedas, then it's described at Srimad Bhagavatam Maman Kriti Kim Bhaper Ishvara Sadhurija Baruja Tetra Kriti Bishu Shushubis Takshana. In the maturity of his literary career, Vyasadeva, he gave us the Srimad Bhagavatam to give the essence and the conclusion, which is, as it's mentioned in the verse and purport, Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga. All of the different yogas, all of the different systems, social systems, they're all meant, in alignment with these ancient wisdom traditions like the Vedas, to bring us to dedicate ourselves purely, as much as possible, to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, with love and devotion. And so this is, you might say, Srimad Bhagavatam is like, it's like the partial biography of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada gave us the Bhagavatam in English in 30 volumes. Partial, because it could be 30 million volumes. And there's still more, because Krishna is unlimited. Okay. So this is about, what I'm getting, reading this purport. It's like Maharaj Parikshit and Saint Vidura, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Vyasadeva, they want us like, they're urging us, use your life for that which is truly meaningful, that which is truly purposeful. And even if it's not for like the most altruistic thing to serve God, but this is where our own bliss is, right? If we're attached to our anartas, that which is foreign to the self, then we're miserable. We're alienated from ourselves. We're empty. We're intrinsically living a superfluous life, that which is external. So this process of bhakti yoga, emphasized in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, given to us by the pure devotee of Krishna, the pure servant of Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada, that this is inviting us to go to the deepest core of our very being, and even deeper to that, to the very substratum of our existence, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Aham Sarvasya Prabhu Matasa Pravartate, the source of all spiritual material energies. And to help us make those distinctions, what supports me? What supports me in deeper enthusiasm to live a truly meaningful life? And what's a distraction? What's an anartha? What's getting in the way? And so Prabhupada makes points about spiritual teacher, right? And the term spiritual master or guru can have different emotional connotations, but it's just to demystify, like a teacher. And Prabhupada's saying, just like, like this, nothing about spiritual teacher, spiritual master, guru, just like, it's not about like a fashion. He said, There was no need to approach a common man who has no interest in spiritual values, has no need to approach a spiritual master just as a matter of following fashion. Who's your guru? Who's your guru? That sort of thing. Okay. So just like, let's say if I'm really serious, like I really want to learn physics. Okay. So then like, okay, I'm going to find a university that has, that has like a credible program, highly authorized program, with a professor. Maybe he's written the book or he gives me authorized books. It's not just like a casual person. I really want to learn this, or if I really want to become good in tennis or golf, we find authorized teachers. So it's actually straightforward and simple. So similar, like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says of all of the sciences, I am the supreme science of the self, meaning God himself, Krishna himself, is alive and present when we're giving ourselves to the science of self-realization, the science of bhakti yoga, the science of love of God, the science of God, the science of the absolute. And God is present to the extent that we're sincere. And so, that like, okay, like how much here on the first day of the year we get to take a look. How much do I really want? How much do I really want self-realization and unconditional love for God? Not just like, that's a nice thing to say, or let's give lip service. How much do I really want it? It's not about shaming ourselves. It's kind of like about like 0.1%, just kind of meeting ourselves where we're at. And then we're encouraged, okay, we can make a New Year's resolution. Move it to 0.2% in 2022 from wherever we're at. Because like, this is the value that will never be crushed by time. Anything else separate from self-realization, cultivating true clearing of anartas, serving Krishna with love, and anything else will be devastated by time. It's gone tomorrow, or in 5 years, 10 years. Of course, this is a very world-embracing process, not world-rejected. So we get to utilize in this process of bhakti yoga, we get to utilize the temporary in the service of the eternal. We get to utilize the relative in the service of the absolute. This body is relative. I'm David Wolf, 61 years old, from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's not absolute eternal knowledge. It's relative. But I can use this particular form to serve my realization of the absolute, my knowledge of the absolute, to get that value which will never be crushed by time. That's satisfying. Everything else will always leave me empty, hollow, frustrated. So it's like we get to feel the compassion of these great sages here. And so, we talked about an authorized tennis teacher, an authorized physics professor, like that. So Srila Prabhupada, he's authorized in the disciplic succession coming from Vyasadeva himself, the compiler, the revealer of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada is an authorized spiritual teacher. And so here we get, just like, okay, words here, like Prabhupada talks about karma. Karma, words like karma, guru, mantra, bhakti, dharma. Right, so this Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, these are the source books. Right? We don't need to just go here and there. Well, no, but I read on the internet, okay, not that the internet is unauthorized necessarily, but what's our sources? What's our authority? Otherwise, it's just like, well, no, I didn't go to university to learn physics, but there was this guy on the street who goes like, oh yeah, I know a lot about physics. Give me $60,000, I'll teach you a lot. So I gave him $60,000. Like, you're a pretty smart guy. So what do you know about physics now? Oh, really nothing. Yeah, really not. I mean, like Newton's law of gravitation, Oppenheimer. No, I didn't learn anything about those guys. So this is authorized spiritual knowledge. You know, Prabhupada talks about karma here. It's like yoga. It's like the essence of yoga we get from Bhagavad Gita, we get from Srimad Bhagavatam. Yoga, like the English word to yoke, to connect, comes from the Sanskrit yoga. So any process, like if someone's sincerely praying to Jesus and they're coming closer to love, deeper in their love of God, that's yoga. Someone's working in agriculture and that connection with the earth truly brings one closer to self-realization and a soft heart love of God. That would be called karma yoga. Now Prabhupada's making a distinction. He said there's a difference between karma and karma yoga. So this is authorized knowledge about karma yoga. What is guru? What is mantra? We don't need to go. We have an authorized source here. We have like the authorized university here to whatever extent we want it. So it's not that. So any work I do, that's yoga. Not necessary. We can do any work with our intellect, with our brain, with our hands. But is it actually bringing us closer to realizing who I am is not the body, is eternal spirit, soul, is eternal servant of God, Jivara, Srupur, Krishna, Nichida? Or is the work entangling me further in the complicated meshes, of the cycle of birth and death? Then it's not yoga. Yeah, and it's described early in the Bhagavatam, but even once, even less than consciously chanting the name of Krishna, those who are entangled in the complicated meshes of birth and death can be freed. So it's a very powerful process. The cornerstone of the Bhakti Yoga process is chanting the names of God in any language, genuine names of God, not making up a name of God. Right. In the foreword of the second edition of Relationships, the Work, the Power of Conscious Living, the foreword is written by Peter Burwash. He was a tennis touring pro in the 1970s, on the tour with Rod Laver and Arthur Ashe and people like that. And then he, since the 70s, he developed the most successful tennis management, tennis teaching company in the world. Yeah, even in the course recently, we had a professional golf instructor, and he heard of Burwash. He knew Burwash. So Burwash writes in his foreword that he describes himself as like growing up, he had very self-absorbed values, self-centered. That's what he described himself. And then he said he went to India and he met a spiritual teacher who told him two things that were the most life-changing things he ever heard. The spiritual teacher is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. He spoke with Prabhupada in Mayapur. So Burwash at that time had just been cheated in business by a friend. He lost a lot of money. There was a lot of bitterness. And then he said, and the spiritual teacher told me two things. One, spiritual life begins when you understand the law of karma. Two, don't be angry at the instrument of your karma. So spiritual life begins when we understand the law of karma. There's a misconception that karma is like supportive of a victim-y approach to life. I guess it's my karma. What can I do? Must be just my karma. Actually, the opposite is true. Karma is synonymous with the stance of 100% radical personal responsibility for the circumstances of my life and for how I respond to those circumstances. And once we get that, right, like someone's hurting, at least that's there's real victimization and there's perceived victimization. Karma means even in those cases of real victimization, okay, I understand. I've hurt someone in a similar way in the past, maybe yesterday, maybe 10 lifetimes ago. And then if I'm not entangled in the hostility and revenge and that whole stuff, then I get to continue enthusiastically in self-realization, in bhakti yoga, enthusiastically to liberate myself from this cycle of karma altogether, from the cycle of birth and death. And just like we gave the example, there could be cheaters in the name of physics. So Prabhupada's giving that, in the name of spiritual life, in the name of spiritual teacher, in the name of guru, there's a lot of cheating going on, trusting that, like everyone knows that. So subscribe. Shruti Smriti Puranadi Panchratra Vidim Vinakantiki Hare Bhakti Utpataya Kalpate. That, like, even if someone is mentioning things like yoga, or even if someone mentions bhakti, that we're encouraged to not have like walls up, but have our intelligence engaged, to be able to make distinctions, check it. Because Srila Prabhupada often quotes his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, who said, this is the society of the cheaters and the cheated. So it's like, I got cheated. Same time, okay. How am I cheating others? How and how come? Have I set myself up to be cheated in the name of spiritual life? What are my anartas? What's foreign in there that I'm attached to? So, I guess my New Year's resolution is to enhance my inspiration, my devotion to, like, I see my role is to support, encourage, inspire people, challenge people, hopefully in a loving way, to connect with Srila Prabhupada. There's no doubt about it, Srila Prabhupada is an authorized, authentic spiritual teacher. And by connecting with Srila Prabhupada through following him and sincerely serving under his guidance, performing bhakti yoga under his guidance, our hearts transform. This is short. This is a doubtless way. If someone says, well, I have another spiritual teacher, I hope it's working. I hope it's working. So my role is to support people to connect with Srila Prabhupada as their current and direct link to Sri Krishna's disciplic succession through Narada Muni, Vyasadeva, like that. And that's my role. And I hope can sound a little victim-y. Determined to fulfill that service to the world at a higher level this year than last year.
That's commitment.
Uh-oh.
There's lots of accountability here.
Yeah, I got like 25 people accountable. It's a commitment, but I guess I was a little slippery because I didn't put it in smart form. So it is a commitment. I am committing. Afterwards, you can get with me, put it in smart form. David, could you put that in form where it's clear whether you've succeeded or not? Okay. All right. Yeah, so that would be helpful for me, to be honest. Otherwise, I'm a slippery fellow, so I can slip here and there. All right, text 4. Nayar parto dayastasya vidarasya malatmana tasmin vari asi prashna sadhu vado pabrimita. Saint Vidura was a great and pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his questions to his grace Rishi Maitreya must have been very purposeful on the highest level and approved by learned circles. Thank you all for your presence and association and for your sincerity about the higher values of life. I welcome at this time any comments, realizations, or questions. Just so you get a sense, those here can see who's online, those online, get a sense who's here. Yeah, Parampara.
comment
Yeah,
that
sure.
just appreciate one thing. Just appreciate it. Anartha without value. That definition
Yes.
stood out to me. Like, what's valuable? Something in the heart that's not valuable. And then so there's this. The root cause of all suffering.
Yeah.
Is like misidentification with itself, with the body.
Yeah.
And I'm just realizing, sitting with and realizing how many other identifications come from that. Actually, Rohini, my wife, we were just discussing about disease, and she's learning this, this system, healing like that. She's an acupuncturist, and so like the practitioner there, he's, somebody might have a diagnosis, and it's like fibromyalgia or whatever.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? That means muscle pain. You have muscle pain. You already know that. So just get rid of that diagnosis, like that label, or just get rid of it. And so that's like a lot of his technique, and just how many things that we latch onto. Like, I'm this type of person. It's all based on that bodily concept. We build so many things on top of that. Like first, we're limiting ourselves, the spirit, soul, limitless, into the body, into the 9 dots, the little box of the body, and then we add on so many other labels and diagnoses and identities, and just to where like where are we? Who are we?
Layers and layers of anarthas.
Yeah. Things of no value, no real value, and then at the same time, to just completely just like, oh, I'm not the body, just to falsely reject that, or to falsely, like the illusion of transcendence, to think that I'm more advanced than I am, just completely reject that, and then, I can fly, or whatever, it could be like really gross examples of like, I'm spirit, I'm limitless, and that can lead to like destructive and reckless behavior. And so like I appreciate Bhakti Yoga and this path that gives a way to be in our experience and not falsely renounce, and to and like just like this example of karma and karma yoga, that any activity, any action is karma, or can be karma, but they're not all karma yoga. So there's a way to use our bodily activities and our senses in a way that is ultimately purifying and leading us towards that limitless spirit, pure identity that we want. So appreciating that, and especially the karma and the distinction between karma and karma yoga.
Thank you, Parampara. Thanks for sharing that very much. And thank you. Yeah. And just, to take the vehicle analogy. So like I'm not the car. If there's a car crash, we're concerned, was anyone injured? The driver's so much more important. And it's important to take care of the car. The car serves us. We want to keep it clean, and we want to service it nicely. And in taking care of the car and appreciating it, we also want to cultivate realization. I'm the driver, not the car. Yeah, both, all of that simultaneously. I know for myself that as I get more and more enthusiastic to practice Bhakti Yoga, I'm more and more attentive to my bodily care. I mean, that's the way it goes. Because like, wow, I get to do something really valuable and meaningful with my life. So let me take care of this vehicle. Anandini.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
And Happy New Year to everyone. I was feeling inspired by your class and by the verse. How you started, like it's an opportunity today. We could take a look what we achieved, or what, like, celebrate successes from last year, and then look into the future. And I noticed today that's what I do at the end of the year. I take a look, and where do I want to put my intention for the future? And I noticed that there's so much fear. So whenever I look at what I want to do externally, like I want to organize a seminar, or I want to buy a house, or I want to whatever, there's so much fear comes up because it's become so clear to me last year how unstable externals, how unreliable they are. And so I was feeling inspired by the end of your class when you said, like, you shared your intention, and I got more clarity. That's if I put my intention on spiritual life, on serving Srila Prabhupada, Krishna, humanity, then that's for sure. Like that's not, nothing can get in the way. If, like, even if, I mean, if there's huge lockdown, breakdown, whatever externally, I can still sit and chant, or I can still sit and read Srimad Bhagavatam. Nothing can take that away. So I was going through this process of coming to more clarity. That's where fear disappears.
Yeah. And Dini, thanks for your sharing. Thanks very much. I appreciate what you expressed there. Yeah. And yeah, this fear, and that's it. This is a fearlessness that nothing can touch. This is what it means to be unstoppable. There's actually a text early in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Etanya jitva manamam ichatam akatobayam. Yoginam rika kirtanam harinamona kirtanam. That describes so many processes, but this process of kirtan, this is the, whatever, we're full of desires, we have this confusion, we want liberation, whatever, wherever we're at, engage in kirtan, engage in chanting the names of God. And the way Prabhupada translates it, this is the doubtless and fearless way of success. Doubtless and fearless way of success. This is, that nothing can get in the way. Savaya pumsam paro dharmo. Yato bhaktira rokshate. I took your pratyeta. Yayatma suprasidati. So hetu means reason. That's what I hear in your sharing. Like, we get like this connection with any of the processes of bhakti. Chanting Hare Krishna, reading Bhagavatam, hearing Bhagavatam, being in kirtan, that no material reason can get, nothing material can get in the way if our desire is sincere to serve Krishna with love and devotion. And the really good news about that is that's our bliss. That's our inner peace, to serve Krishna with love and devotion. That's our bliss, that's our inner peace. And it's like, yeah, but what about the pandemic? It's in the third year now. Yeah, but what about the economy? Yeah, but what about my family situation? Yeah, but what about this and that? What about health? Yeah, that's all. So responding to that, and what those verses say, if we're sincere that what I want is self-realization and to serve Krishna, nothing can get in the way. The most terrifying calamity, tragedy we can think of, nothing can get in the way of serving Krishna. That's a fearless shelter. That's security.
Yeah, I'd like to get there fully. Oh, sorry.
Go on, Anandini. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to be very, very fixed in that place. I can get glimpses. The main experience is just fear. Oh no, what's going to happen? And also, I want to share something that I realized how important it is for me.
Yes.
Is to appreciate myself and also others for taking this path of devotional service and self-realization, to giving time to that, to being committed to that, because so much of I spent a lot of time with family and friends, Christmas festival times, and I noticed how little appreciation there is for spending time with God. And yeah, so I just feel like expressing this appreciation for everyone, that you're giving yourself to this, because it's not it's not easy always.
It's rare in this world, and so I'm clear on this first day of the new year, and indeed you're expressing your heartfelt gratitude and appreciation to be in association of sincere souls dedicated for a meaningful, purposeful life, self-realization, love of God. Thanks for sharing that. Just to get context, but not in. So Anandini, she's based in Switzerland. So she's joining us from Switzerland, where right now it's about 10 after 3 in the afternoon. Anandini, thanks much for your sharing.
Thank you.
My little comment was just that sometimes the hardships can help us serve, because when things go wrong, people need help. And so if we're trained in good listening skills, it's like, it becomes like really easy service, which is a good opportunity to serve Krishna from the heart in a loving way when it's needed, which is really nice. And that's kind of what I experienced being here in Alachua after being isolated for so long, is that it's really natural to make spiritual advancement when you're around devotees. It's so easy to serve them, and it's so easy to please Krishna if they're favorable in their hearts. And so it becomes this feedback loop that becomes mutually nourishing and building, which is really, really lovely.
Thank you, Ananda. Thanks for sharing. What you share reminds me of this key bhakti principle enunciated by Srila Rupa Goswami. He talks about exchanges of love between souls who are sincere about self-realization, God consciousness. And 2 of those exchanges he describes as Guyam Pakati Prichati, creating spaces amongst us where it's like it's a safe place to share the heart and mind confidentially, and to inquire confidentially, to support us to really support ourselves and others, to look at where our Mayan art is, not to hide behind a happy mask or a philosophical bypass or a spiritual bypass mask, to look at, here's my inspiration, here's where I'm feeling blocked, to support each other, to distinguish reality from illusion, starting from within. Thank you, Ananda.
Yeah.
Dr. Drew?
There were some things that like kind of pieced together to give me what I'm thinking is like maybe a better understanding, and I'm wanting to hear your response to what I think I'm understanding. So initially from Prabhupada's sharing, I was appreciating just like bringing up like our misidentification, and that's something that I definitely find that I'm suffering from like almost constantly. And like something that was coming to like I just wanted to understand is like, well, where is that coming from? Like that's a root, and my sense of it is like, well, it's my desire to enjoy, like separate from Krishna. It's like, and it's like not just to enjoy or to be the enjoyer, but to enjoy separate from Krishna. And like, yeah, because it's just like, otherwise, like I could connect with myself at that level of spirit soul. And it's like, when I do that, sometimes I get this sense that like, well, the spirit soul is just like, please engage me in your transcendental loving devotional service. Like, how can I serve you? How can I please you? And that's like directed to Krishna, and that's very like satisfying and pleasing. For me, that's generally like seconds, you know, of like maybe having that experience, but that feels like the real thing.
The real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that feels like the real thing. And I guess yeah, I guess like the solution is just to continue chanting, to continue in the processes of bhakti yoga. But I think I'm gaining a better understanding, and maybe I didn't need to, maybe it would just be like, hey, just chant. But for me, I think it helps to have like a better understanding of like, well, where are these things coming from? Like, why am I feeling like jealous or lusty or desirous of this and that? And it's like, oh, okay, I'm wanting to enjoy in this way that's never going to actually be satisfying.
I appreciate your share. I appreciate your personal and philosophical sharing and realizations, Drew. Thank you. We can't say just chant. Just chant can sometimes, I mean, there's truth there. At the same time, it sometimes be an escape from honest introspection. And that's why it's helpful. I know if I'm like awake and conscious when I read Prabhupada's books, it's like joyful but uncomfortable. It's like I'm really, have an opportunity to look at myself. Where are my irrational attachments? Where are my self-deceptions? And so by studying the philosophy and Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, these are self-revealing vibrations, exposing ourselves, hearing and chanting. It helps us to make those fine distinctions within ourselves. What is reality? What is illusion? To clear that which is in the way of my enthusiasm to constantly chant. And I appreciate how you said that you have some glimpses of like spirit, I'm spirit, soul, let me serve Krishna. Some glimpses, and that's it. I've shared recently in a recent class a few weeks ago that, okay. And yeah, in some respects, I've been endeavoring to practice this process of Krishna consciousness for about 40 years. And I could look at like, I've made very little progress. So that can seem discouraging, but I'm not discouraged. That, because like, okay, maybe it's just like, well, really it's an eternal path, right? It's an infinite path. I say like in 40 years, I've made 1 inch of progress. But that, I have enough conviction to know without any doubt that an inch of progress on that path is worth 1 trillion times more than 1 million miles of progress in any other direction. I have complete conviction about that. So going into 2022, I'm feeling lots of enthusiasm. Let me progress another inch and let me get a few more glimpses of that, of who I am, a spirit, soul, servant of Krishna, purely, cleanly. And this is meaningful. This is meaningful. Even a drop of that, that's nectar.
Hi, Hare Krishna. May I share one last thing? All right, so 2 things came up for me. It's like 2 things that I've heard from Prabhupada, and hopefully I'm remembering well. Was he was like a symptom of advancement in Krishna consciousness is humility. And so that's what I was like getting from when I was listening to you, just like hearing, but like receiving your humility and really appreciating that. And then another thing that was coming to mind is like sometimes I just feel like, man, I wish I could just like ask Prabhupada like directly, just like, okay, like if I really want to like be engaged 24 hours a day, like what is a way like other than chant? It's not like I can just be sitting with my friend and just go, hey, I'm with you, we're spending quality time today, like that's not nice. Like Kara was agitated with me yesterday. We were in the car, arguments or problems with partners and wives.
Some quarrel.
Yeah, she was like agitated. She was trying to tell me a story, and I was just like chanting. I was like, well, I just want to, and like I want to ask Prabhupada, but like how can I be engaged? And I just want to ask him, like, is it to just like be in my heart and to from my heart's place, like be asked in the question of or in the process of asking Krishna to engage me in his service, and I don't know what that looks like. Like, is that how I can achieve presence? Like, is that how I can show up in every moment? That's what I want to know. And something that may be connected, but I don't know, is like, a person was asking Prabhupada, like, what's more important, thinking of Krishna 24/7 or my service? And he was like, well, the point of everything that we're doing is to be thinking of Krishna 24/7. And so then he was like, well, Prabhupada was like, well, if you want to know how to do that, you just have to think yourself to be unqualified to do what your service, and so that you're dependent on Krishna. And that's how you can be constantly thinking of Krishna. But yeah, I'm just, I guess I'm having trouble putting into practice or knowing how to be in this process moment to moment.
Thanks for sharing, Drew. I hear a lot of emotion in your share. I hear a lot of emotions coming up for you. Bittersweet, tenderness, pain, frustration, sweetness. I hear a lot of currents of emotion. Okay, I'll share a response. Prabhupada is fully 100% available to you to respond to your 24-hour question in abundance. He's joyfully ready to respond to you. There's need to be no mystery. There's no sharing. There's no reason for any confusion or bewilderment. It is sometimes said, the reward for service is more service. Yeah, I thought we had a lollipop or something, you know? The reward for service is more service. So I'll ask you. So I'll ask you a question. And really, I'm not coming from a judgment. Just like, because you invoke Prabhupada's presence. So Prabhupada recommends, and it's not about, it's just about, you know, our honest response. It recommends that if we realize each day of our life to progress out of material misery to our original consciousness, pure devotion to Krishna. He recommends now that we make some commitment to chant, and he recommends if we chant one mantra per year, that's glorious. And he recommends if we really want to make advancement every day out of the material ocean into the bliss of devotional service, he recommends we commit to at least 16 rounds of japa per day. That's Prabhupada's recommendation. So I'm curious, are you committed to follow that every day of your life? And it's not like you should be or shouldn't be. That's between you and you, you and Krishna, and your relationship with Srila Prabhupada. So I'm not talking about, yeah, I'm really excited. And then 2 weeks from now, 2 years from now, like Prabhupada often said, like better than a shooting star is a steady moon. So just in that one practice, you don't need to answer, but how committed are you to be a steady moon, to follow that guidance from Srila Prabhupada, to chant at least 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra Japa every day for this lifetime? And there's many other things, but I'm saying because in one sense, we're saying, Prabhupada, tell me what to do. Okay, start with this. Nah, but Prabhupada, what can I do? Start with chanting 16 rounds every day, meaning whether you feel like it or not, meaning you're happy, you're sad, you're in anxiety, you're feeling the bliss, you're not feeling the bliss. But because in one sense, real love means I'm there for you, whether I'm feeling it or not. So how dedicated are you to, in your part, because Prabhupada's fulfilling his part in his relationship with you. He's ready to engage you 24 hours per day. He's ready to engage you 72 hours per day, guaranteed. And he's saying, start here. And if the response is, I'll think about it, then he's like, okay. And okay, I have enough of a connection with Prabhupada to know you commit to that steadily, like lines in a rock, you commit to that steadily and you follow that, the reward will be more and more service, up to 24 hours per day. No question about
Hare Krishna.
If you dare.
it. Thank you, Bhakti Drew. Malini.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I don't know how to use Zoom with this new thing, but yeah, I don't know how to put the camera on. Doesn't show anything. So I was thinking of your sharing about the 1 tiny % of advancement. And I was combining that with Drew's sharing, and I appreciate your response to Drew. There is no mystery. And I believe an important part of Srila Prabhupada's teaching and Srila Rupa Goswami's teaching is patience. And sometimes, impatience to have an experience or to be a certain devotee or to be a certain level of devotee or to be something, which is nice. It's an identification with spiritual identity rather than material. Still, it's in some ways motivated by our conditioning, and in that we can get very impatient that I should be more present, I should be more advanced, I should be more connected with my japa, and to lay so many expectations on ourselves versus really following the process with patience and determination and conviction and commitment.
Thank you, Malini. Thanks for sharing that such vital quality of patience, utsaha nishtaya darya tata karma vivartana, enthusiasm and patience. Thanks for, again, that patience. That's such a key quality to progress steadily into higher stages of consciousness, and with impatience with ourselves, with impatience, then it could be like a shooting star for 24 hours or something. Thanks for emphasizing that. Thank you, Malini.
Patience with the process also, patience with ourselves, and patience with the process. The process, if we follow it, there is no okay, if I follow it, 3 hours? Like at the beginning of Srila Prabhupada's movement, I heard the devotee saying that the leader in their zone was saying, in 3 years, you're a pure devotee. So patience with the process means the process is not up to me. What's up to me is to follow it.
Patience, thanks for that. Patience with ourselves and patience with the process. And the process, essentially and ultimately, that's the grace of Krishna and Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna Bhakti Payal. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for that, Malini. Patience with ourselves and patience with the process, which means surrender. That I'm not the controller of the process or even my process. I get to serve with enthusiasm. Thank you, Malini. Ananda.
Yeah, I have a question for Drew, because you were sharing that you have this longing to be, longing to advance, but also a longing to be connected, right in that moment with Krishna and serving. And so that's what I heard anyway. And that you were in the car with your wife. Kara, is she your wife? Okay. And she was irritated that you were chanting because maybe she wanted you to be with her. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but you have this longing. It was like just in the context of the answer and the question. So he was longing to be more connected with Krishna, and he was chanting, and his wife wanted a connection, a personal connection. And so, so I'm just putting a question mark on that. Like, what is the service in that moment, in the context of that relationship and in your day? It's more of a question than an answer. And maybe bringing in that patience piece and holding on to that longing. Though we don't necessarily know, right?
Thanks for your question, Ananda. Thank you. Thank you all for your presence and association. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.